Welcome to Introduction to Computing. Here we're going to spend quite a bit of time together looking at the environment and computing issues that make up our world today when it comes to information systems and the many components that support and create what we know as the computing systems that we have in the world today. And it doesn't just mean the machines, but it means everything to do with the interconnectedness and connectivity that's involved in networking, as well as issues pertaining to the communication that exists between those machines. And when it fails, of course, as you know, it fails and business stops, as well as government and other entities. They have real problems today because we are so information dependent on how we are running our world and making our world continue to be productive and societies to have all the kinds of encounters and interdependency that we have. Now there are a total of 10 topics in this course, and I just want to mention them in an effort to help you to understand where we're headed. The first of these, of course, is an introduction to what is computing, which we will discuss in just a few minutes. After that, we are going to look at computer hardware. And naturally, you've got to start with the box, with the machines themselves, and what we can do with them and what they are. We're also going to look at storage devices. These are very important today because of the amount of information that we are having to digest and having to save and keep so that we have this information for future use. We also have the operating systems itself and the networking, of course, that enables machines to communicate with each other. We will talk about that in some detail. Also, application software and, of course, the key element, the key piece of software known as the browser. A very, very important piece and also one of the weakest pieces of software that we have in computing. There's also the issues to do with multiple OSs that now exist on mobile devices. And we're going to talk about those because everyone seems to have one today. Everyone is involved with one in somehow, from the cell phone to the smartphone to the iPad to the personal digital assistant. So we need to talk about mobile computing devices in some detail. Also, troubleshooting. Now this is a key element too, because your computer, your PC, your machine, even in your home office or maybe at work, it will have problems from time to time. You need to have some kind of grasp, some kind of understanding of what it means to troubleshoot these machines, and to be able to get your arms around that can save you a lot of time and a lot of wasted effort in trying to get things fixed and up and running again. So troubleshooting will be a good topic for us to discuss. Then there's data, the information, the files, and file management. This is a key item too. You need to understand how your computer manages all of the things that you create, whether they be letters, PowerPoint presentations, great documents that are some length, important confidential documents that have to do, say, with legal transactions or something like that, even personal things. You need to understand better how the machine handles files and file management and what the difference is between data and information. So we will go on, of course, into internet basics. What does it mean to have the internet today? And we'll see that how it changed and why it's continuing to develop in many, many different ways that will increase our ability to use the web and increase our ability to communicate throughout the web. So I thank you that I'll be thanking you once we get through with this, because the internet is a key piece, because we need to understand it thoroughly, because it's getting ready to really shift into some new areas like 3D and 4D, as well as surface technology, and we're going to discuss some of those things that are ahead of us. Also, finally, we'll deal with the issue of security. A heavy, serious part of the discussion of computing today is security, because it's not unusual to have viruses. It's not unusual to have your machines infected in some way. We're going to talk about that in some detail and look at backup issues as well, another biggie. How do we handle the need for backup? How do we make sure that our resources are protected, not just from corruption or from intrusion, but also so that we can retrieve it in the event of a disaster, which can easily occur today. So there's a lot here. There's a lot on the shelf, just on the table, I should say, just from a standpoint of the introduction to computing and what we do about it today from the standpoint of business, and not just personal use, but commerce and governmental use, as well as intelligence, which you know is a big issue today in the world in which we dwell in, where we are having to use tools of surveillance and intelligence gathering, because the internet and cell phones and other types of devices are being used to commit crimes in a big way. So that's really, in general, what the course is going to be about. It's going to have these different topics, sections, if you will, that we will discuss in some detail. And you will hear lectures on each piece of that so that you can get your arms around it and understand it as clearly and as concisely as possible. So to begin with, we need to ask ourselves, what is computing? What is it about? How do we define it? What do we mean by it? Is it simply, do we mean information technology, which is all of the gadgets that support it, that are hard, and they have chassis in which things are held inside of it? That could be wires, that could be monitors, that could be actual PCs. Or do we just mean information systems, which are the programs and software and the items that turn the data into something that's useful? And it allows us to manipulate the data. It allows us to put the data in a form that we can be productive with and use in our work, wherever it might be, whatever kind of environment we might be working in. Or do we want to say that computing is just simply communication, which in essence, that's really what it is. It is communication. And it's a special type of communication. It's the way we communicate today. So computing, when you talk about computing, you want to talk about it being foundational to everything that's creative and productive and business-like in our world today. That's what computing is. It is the track upon which the train runs, so to speak. It's the road upon which the cars drive and go from one place to the other. Without it, we would not be doing the kinds of things that we're doing in our world today. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Computing is ubiquitous. I have 8 PCs in my own home office. I have the ability to communicate worldwide with people on consulting projects of different kinds. You have the ability as well. You just have to have the right devices to do that with. So that's computing in a nutshell. It is communication. When you drill down, you're talking about governmental, international trade. You're talking about banking and finance and research and development. You're talking about collaboration on a global scale. You're talking about country to country, nation to nation, continent to continent, island to island. It's everywhere. And it is going to be making our future, creating a future that's going to be evolving and changing as we're able to uh, do things with these devices in new and more creative ways. In fact, we are going to look at some of those very creative ways to do things, and show that how the world is changing because of computing. You have to ask the question eventually: is it that business and government and military and intelligence, is that what is driving computing and computing technology and information systems? Or is it rather that the computing itself, the information technology, the information systems, all those components and the environments that they create, are they driving everything else? It's a moot question in a way, because the answer is yes to both. You have to say, well, a need is out there for this, and they create some kind of device to fix it and to take care of it. Or you say that someone recognizes the potential or the creative use of a device that already exists, and maybe they just extend the technology or the ability of that device to handle that issue or handle that problem, or maybe to solve uh, something that is expected to be a problem in the future. So there you go. It's like looking at our cars today, the luxury cars that are produced, and they have hundreds of computers in them. They have computers, of course, that handle just simply enabling a car to be able to park itself. And that's all handled by these computers that are on board this new car. Now we're going to have computers that are going to be able to help us to be more energy efficient and fuel efficient in the way we drive, so that we don't use as much fuel and consume as much fuel and be as dependent on the current situation that we have with fossil fuels in our world today. So we have all of this driving our need to use the world of computing to make it a better world, to make it a healthier world even, and think of its use in medicine. So what is computing? It is communication for sure, but it's really also using these devices, using their ability to take data and turn it into information that's very useful for us to make a better environment for us in which to live and work and produce things that are good for the human race. So think of it like that, that really this is cutting edge technology that is taking us into a new millennium. It's going to create the 21st century and every other century thereafter in special ways, once we are able to really have devices that can do super things. So we might talk also about quantum computing and other types of computing that are on the cutting edge, DNA computing, for example. And we will learn about how these types of environments that are around the corner, maybe 10 years or so out, that they are going to open up new ways in which to use computing, communication, data, information to continue to make our world a better place. So I thank you for your attention as I have tried to introduce this course to you, what it's about in its sections, and to talk in general about what is computing. I certainly hope you'll develop your own definition and your own understanding of what computing is for you and for where you work and for what you're going to do in your life in developing your career and going forward. Thank you very much for your attention and look forward to talking with you soon.